Last year, Chris Young was able to sign one of the best deals of the offseason, buying low on Kirby Yates, who had a phenomenal season. Can he do it again this winter? We'll find out. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into 6 buy low candidates for the Rangers to go and get in their bullpen this offseason, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, the Rangers last offseason, instead of signing one big reliever to a massive contract in Josh Hader, they decided to go the piecemeal route, signing 2 relievers to medium-sized deals, trying to fix their bullpen with just 2 signings. And it worked for the most part. I mean, the team didn't make the World Series this year. They didn't win the World Series. They didn't even make the playoffs or even have a winning record. But the Rangers tried to fix what was a horrendous bullpen in 2023 with basically just 2 signings and heading into the 2024 season. And they basically fixed it, at least to the back end, signing Kirby Yates coming off of a decent, not great season with Atlanta to a 1-year, $4.5 million deal. He turned out to be the second best reliever in all of Major League Baseball this past season, had an incredible year, made the All-Star team with Texas, and was just downright dominant, jumping into that closer's role about 2 weeks into the season, if even that. And then they also signed David Robertson, who was downright phenomenal this season as well in an 8th inning role. And the rest of the Rangers bullpen just didn't quite hold up. The offense didn't hold up. But, those 2 guys in Yates and Robertson, absolutely phenomenal signing. And the Rangers, it looks like they're going to have a limited budget yet again, and they'll have to replace probably Yates and Robertson. I know the Rangers would like to bring back Kirby Yates. That is not going to be priority number 1 this offseason, but it's going to be pretty high up there. Robertson is, I think, considering retirement. He is going to be, I believe, 40 or 41 heading into next season. There is a mutual option there for a $7 million deal in 2025. I know the Rangers would sure like it if he took that and kind of help shore up that bullpen. But there are 2 to 3 high leverage relief slots that the Rangers need to go almost certainly fill externally. And in terms of these big name free agents on the market, these guys that are coming off of incredible seasons, guys that like Tanner Scott, guys like Clay Holmes, who's probably going to get a big old deal, guys like Carlos Estevez, who's probably going to get a big old deal. It seems like the Rangers are much more comfortable, instead of signing one guy to big money, signing multiple kind of under the radar guys and hoping that at least 1 or 2 of them work out. But I got 6 different relievers the Rangers could sign, not including Yates and Robertson. I think those guys, bringing them back, would be higher on the priority list than basically any of these guys. But these guys, I think, are really great candidates for the Rangers to go and try and buy low and get maybe not the next Kirby Yates, because signing a guy to have a 111 ERA on a $4.5 million deal, it's not going to happen every offseason. But these guys, I think, could definitely help the Rangers bullpen next season, and they're going to need a lot of help. Starting off with my number 1 guy, AJ Minter, a left-handed pitcher who has spent his entirety of his career with the Atlanta Braves, a guy who grew up in Tyler, a guy who went to Texas A&M. Feel free to whoop here if you are one of my Aggie friends or an Aggie enemy, whatever you are. He has been the model of consistency. One of the things that I really value in a reliever in terms of when the Rangers are trying to sign them, especially if it's to a multi-year deal, is consistency. That's the main reason why I loved the David Robertson signing at the time. Ended up working out because you know exactly what you're getting with David Robertson. He is going to be the model of consistency He's going to do the same thing basically every year. And Minter has basically been that as well. He spent 8 seasons in the big leagues, all with Atlanta, a 3.28 career ERA. Only a couple seasons where he's had an ERA north of 3. He's had a couple of incredible seasons, a couple of pretty decent seasons. He really only had one actually bad year, and that was in 2019 with the juice ball. But he's a guy who gets a lot of strikeouts. He has got a very low ERA last season in 2023, 3.7 ERA, but he did have 82 strikeouts in nearly 65 innings. This year, only 34 and a third innings pitched, 35 strikeouts, around a 2.5 ERA. He's been around that for his career. He has not had too many incredible otherworldly seasons. He's not had barely any bad seasons. And for that, I think that is what gets me excited about AJ Minter. He's projected to sign a 2-year, $5.4 million deal in free agency, according to SpotTrack. That's 2.7 mil a year for a guy who's going to go into your pen. He's not a huge velocity guy. He's averaging 94.5 miles an hour with his fastball. So he's still 31 years old. He's I think just turned 31. He is going to be heading into his age 31 season next year. Yeah, just turned 31 in September, early September of this year. So he's a guy who I feel pretty confident the Rangers throwing him back there in the pen. He's probably not going to be the Rangers closer next year. But having a high leverage lefty in that pen, I think, is very, very important. I think it's something that the Rangers could use, because right now their bullpen for next year, if we're heading into the season right now, their high leverage relief option is take your pick. Maybe it's going to be the guy who they traded for, the lefty who they traded for, Walter Pennington. It's probably him at this point. And Pennington was fine. He wasn't bad. He wasn't amazing. But if that's the guy you got as your high leverage guy, unless the Rangers want to pick up that $6.5 million team option on Andrew Chafin, which I very much don't think they do. I cannot see a scenario where that happens unless a lot of things go very differently than I'm expecting this offseason. But Minter has been a guy who has been just so incredibly consistent, spending all of his years in Atlanta. I mean, spending a reliever coming up, being drafted by a team, coming up with the team, and making it all the way to free agency with that team, 8 seasons. I mean, that doesn't happen all that often. Usually these relievers bounce around quite a bit, but Minter has been there. He is a guy who is a changeup, four-seam fastball cutter guy. He's got a changeup and cutter go very, very well against right-handed hitters. He's got not quite equal splits against lefties and righties. He's been a little bit better against lefties, a 602 OPS against lefties in his career versus a 666 OPS against righties in his career. He's not a guy who walks a whole ton of guys, which is good and kind of rare in a reliever. Gets decent strikeout rates. Last year, he had a 26.1% strikeout rate, which is a little bit better than league average, striking out around 29% batters in his career. It's a pretty darn good rate for a guy to put in there in those leverage relief role. A guy who could do well in the playoffs, a guy who has got that swing and miss stuff, a guy who has, been there, done that. He's got playoff experience. He has been on a contending team for basically the entirety of his career. I'm not going to say that the Braves won it all every single year that he was there, but he was there when they did win it all in 2021. He has been there when they have won so many AL East regular season titles. I don't think every year in his career, but just about. It seems like since 2017, they didn't win the division this year. They ended up making the wild card round and the whole hubbub surrounding that. But Minter has been a guy who I have liked for quite some time. Him being a native Texan, I think, could sway him to come back to Texas to spend some time in his major league career in Texas. I don't know exactly how great the Braves feel about him, but they've got some other relief options. They've got some other lefty relief options in their pen. A couple of guys, Aaron Bummer, I can't remember the other guy, but Bummer's got a player option or team option for next season. I think Bummer will probably be their primary lefty next year. They could be going hard on AJ Minter, but I think the Rangers should definitely take a good long look at AJ Minter, especially $2.7 million a year for a high leverage lefty who you feel pretty good about being consistent in the back end of your pen. That is a darn good deal. Coming up, we'll look at another former Brave and actually a former Ranger as well, coming off of a down season, who might just be the perfect candidate to fix his bullpen next year. Right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best way to get in the action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. All you do is pick more or less on a 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my pick hits, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Now, let's look at the number 2 guy on this list. This is a guy who is in the playoffs and thriving right now. That's right. It is Blake Treinan. He is 37 years old, heading into his age 37 season, projected to sign a 1-year, $2.4 million deal. If you're thinking, I feel like I've heard that name, Blake Treinan, before. He has been around for quite some time, 10 major league seasons. Right now, he is the closer for the Dodgers. I think if the Dodgers end up winning this World Series, he might end up signing a bigger deal than 1 year, $2.4 million. But he has missed most of the last 2 seasons. This year, he pitched in 50 games, had a sub-2 ERA. The last time he pitched was 2022, missed all of 2023 with injuries, had a 1.80 ERA in just 5 games, 5 innings with the Dodgers in 2022. Then also a sub-2 ERA with the Dodgers in 2021, 72 games in that season, 72 and a third innings, 85 strikeouts. He was phenomenal and consistent. He had a couple of bad years, one with Oakland at nearly 5 ERA in 2019. I blame that more on the juiced ball era. Also had some real problems with walks that year, a 5.7 walks per 9. But in his career, averaging around 3 walks per 9, that's solid for a reliever. That's about what you'd expect. Leclerc has had quite some problems with the walk. He's been around 4 to 4.5 walks per 9. I think Yates was at 3.7 or so walks per 9 this year. Maybe he was at 4. But still, if you've got a reliever who's not walking all that many and striking out basically 11 batters per 9, if you combine 2021, 22, and 2024 as well. He has been so freaking good. His stuff is absolutely electric. And even though he doesn't have the same velocity he did back in the day with Oakland, he has still found a way to stay dominant, to stay consistent, to be the best relief option in a Dodgers pen that has been absolutely incredible this season. He also had one of the best seasons from a reliever I think I've ever seen. Back in 2018, his age 30 season with Oakland, he was downright unhittable that year. A 0.78 ERA on the season, 80 and a third innings, 100 strikeouts, was an all-star, earned MVP votes, finished 6th in the Cy Young voting that season. I believe that was the year that Justin Verlander won it, or maybe that was the year it was Rick Porcello that somehow stole it from him. But still, he has had that peak of being absolutely amazing. He has had that consistency of many, many seasons where he has been really freaking good. His stuff is as good as ever right now. Always there's some concern with injury risk with a reliever. Even if it took a 2-year deal, if he's still at 2.4 mil per year for Treinan, heck, even if it's somewhere closer to the 4.5 million that the Rangers signed Kirby Yates to, I think Treinan might just be the best reliever on this market. And that includes a lot of really, really talented guys that are going to be relievers. Maybe I should pull back. Maybe I should say Kirby Yates is obviously the most. He's coming off the best season of anybody on this market. But Treinan is a guy who I have liked for quite some time. I think the Dodgers, especially if they win it all, they'll probably be pretty aggressive in trying to bring Treinan back. they will obviously have more important priorities. They're apparently going to be in on the Juan Soto sweepstakes. So if the Rangers say, hey, Blake Treinan, your team's not really worrying that much about you. Why don't we get you this guaranteed pretty solid deal right now while they're more concerned with signing Juan Soto? Because that's probably where the Rangers' priorities are going to be this offseason, is figuring out who is going to fill their pen, because they need so many leverage relief options, leverage relievers to sign this offseason, because it's basically just Josh Spores and friends heading into the pen next year. So Treinan would be, I think, an amazing option if the Rangers wanted to go that route, and if they could convince him to leave the probably world champion Dodgers. The next guy on this list is a former Ranger, a Texas native. That is Chris Martin, heading into his age 39 season. He is the big, tall, 6'8" righty, has been with the Red Sox the last couple of seasons, won a World Series with the Atlanta Braves in 2021. He signed with Texas back in 2018, had a not great first season in Texas, but in 2019, he was very, very good. The Rangers traded him at the deadline to Atlanta, where he spent the next 3 seasons, spent the last 2 seasons in Boston, and this year coming off a 3.5 ERA, which doesn't sound terrible, but compared to what he was the year before, as the Boston Red Sox setup man in 2023, a 1.05 ERA, he was just downright unhittable. I mean, he was absolutely incredible. And according to Spotrac, he's projected to sign a 1-year, $1.4 million deal. He's a guy who grew up in Arlington. I believe he went to UTA, if I'm remembering that correctly. And I most definitely am not. He was drafted out of McLennan Community College, but went to Arlington High School. He is a Texas native. He has been in Texas before. Granted, it was under a different regime. Chris Young was not a part of the organization when Chris Martin was there. But he's been a guy who has been, again, very, very consistent. I mean, with me saying he's coming off of a bad season, it's a 3.5 ERA. It was a pretty solid year. And for $1.4 million, and he's got that upside of, just a season ago, having an absolutely incredible relief season. He was also incredible with the Dodgers down the stretch in 2022 after he was traded away by the Cubs. But he's had a lot of really, really good seasons, and I think that a reunion here could make a whole lot of sense. Speaking of reunions and former Rangers that could come back, the next guy on this list, another left-handed pitcher, Matt Moore, heading into his age 36 season. He's projected to sign a 1-year, $3.4 million deal. I think that, it is just about the most expensive per year of anybody on this list. He is a left-handed pitcher who spent some time in Texas, some very brief time in Texas, and then out of Texas, and then back in Texas again. His best career season as a reliever was with the Texas Rangers in 2022. A bad season for Texas, 74 innings back in 2022, a 1.95 ERA, 83 strikeouts. The Rangers did not trade him away at the deadline, despite being very much out of it, because they wanted a chance to have exclusive negotiating window to bring him back and hopefully contend in 2023. That didn't happen. He signed a 2-year deal with the Angels, spent some time away from the Angels because the Angels just straight up cut him in that very, very weird deadline, whatever it was, of them trying to get under the luxury tax in 2023. So he spent time on the waiver wire, got claimed by Cleveland, then got claimed by Miami, then went back to LA this year, where he had a 5.03 ERA coming off of a really, really rough season. So maybe this $3.4 million deal isn't exactly what he's going to sign. But I mean, part of the reason I'm a little scared off, I think a little hesitant on this, is not just he's getting older. That's what happens with relievers all the time. I mean, 2023, he had a really good season, a 2.5 ERA, which is why it was so surprising that the Angels just straight up cut him and Hunter Renfroe and a bunch of other really good players just to get under that salary, that luxury tax. But I mean, this year, not a good year. An ERA north of 5, and he lost about not quite a mile and a half per hour, but 1.2 miles an hour of velocity on his fastball, and basically all of his other pitches. The changeup wasn't nearly as good as it's been in the past. Started throwing a cutter a little bit this year. Only threw him 6 times, but the only times that it ended in at bat was it gave up a double and a triple. Only threw it 6 times, and he gave up 2 massive extra base hits. Don't think he'll be using that again in 2024. But if the Rangers think that they can fix him, I mean, his expected batting average and his hard hit rate, both of those were in the top quarter of baseball. Everything else, not great. Still getting some swing and miss, but was walking a whole lot of guys, which he's always done. Wasn't striking out nearly as many, wasn't getting nearly as many to chase. But I think if the Rangers see something there where they think, oh, this is why he was so bad last year. He's got a track record. He has succeeded here, and they think they can bring him back, which they should have done heading into the 2023 season, which if they had done, maybe they wouldn't have had to trade Cole Reagans away for Aroldis Chapman, and Cole Reagans could be here and everything could be a little bit more wonderful. But alas, that is revisionist history. That is not the way the cookie crumbled, but maybe it can crumble a little bit differently this time. Coming up, we're looking at a couple of guys who are much on the older side, could be, but are coming off of a really underrated season, and I think could be the perfect buy low candidates. Talk about all that and more right after this word from our sponsors. The show is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, it's time to get in on the action on FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today. Do it started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now, these last 2 guys, well, one of them I was looking at last year, and even at the trade deadline, heading into this past season, I've been looking at this guy for quite some time. That is Adam Ottavino, the guy who has pitched with the New York Mets for the last 3 seasons, actually. He is heading into his age 39 season, so a little bit on the older side. Did not pitch all that much in the playoffs this year, was not really trusted as a high leverage relief option for the New York Mets. Only pitched in 1 inning, end up giving up 1 run, walked 3 guys in that 1 inning of work. But this year in the regular season, coming off of a decent year, 4.34 ERA, not anything too spectacular, but the couple of years before, a 3.21 ERA and a 2.06 ERA. He is projected to sign a 1-year, $1.5 million deal. And the reason that I am high on this guy, the reason that I am excited about this guy is you go to his baseball reference page and you can see there is a lot of reason to be excited about this guy. The walk rate was, not great this year, but still striking out quite a few, 70 strikeouts in 56 innings. That is better than he has done the past few seasons. The strikeout rate has been higher. The expected ERA, even though the actual ERA was 4.34, the expected ERA was 3.13. He was just getting a little bit unlucky with some subpar Mets defense. He wasn't hit hard. He's got really great extension. I mean, he's 6'5", and he gets down the mound quite a bit. So that fastball velocity, even though it's only sitting at 92.5 miles per hour, it plays way up because he is getting so far down the mound. It is just right on hitters once it is out of his hand. I mean, the average exit velocity was in the top 12% of the league, strikeout rate top 15% of the league. Expected batting average is in the top 8% of the league. This guy just got unlucky last season. He has got a pretty decent track record with the Mets and with other places he has been in the big leagues for 14 seasons. He made his debut back in 2010 with the Cardinals, then spent a lot of time with the Colorado Rockies, then spent some time with the Yankees, a season with Boston, and the last 3 with the Mets. I think this is a guy who the Rangers should be in on. I think he's not going to be the Rangers closer next season if they sign him. I would hope they would sign somebody else, not just him. But at $1.5 million for a guy like this, I think that would be an absolute steal for Texas. I feel like a lot of these contracts are lower than I actually expect him to be. I mean, Chris Martin's coming off of a half decent season, 1 year, $1.5 million. Maybe that's a little bit low, but he is going to be 39. Ottavino also going to be 39. And the last guy on this list heading into his age 36 season, the lowest deal on the table right now, that is Caleb Thielbar. Actually, he's heading into his age 38 season, the lefty reliever who has spent the last basically all of his big league career with the Minnesota Twins, coming off of a honestly really bad year, a 5.32 ERA in Minnesota. But the couple of seasons, actually the whole 4 seasons before 2020 to 2023, he was a model of consistency. Last year, he still had a pretty decent strikeout rate, but the walk rate was just way, way up from where it's been in his career. He is not a guy who relies a whole lot on velocity. His fastball is averaging just 93.2 miles per hour. Just didn't have a whole lot of success last year, but the season before, he has been a very, very successful reliever. Predicted to sign a 1-year, $900,000 deal. For a guy who has had several seasons of big league success and not that far removed in 2023, 2022, 2021, heck, even in 2020, this guy has been very good. He had a 3.2 ERA in 23, 3.5 ERA in 22, 3.2 in 2021. He has had nearly 10 Ks per nine in his career, 9.8. It was down a little bit from where it had been in years past this year. Still over 10 Ks per nine this season in a poor year. Struggled a little bit with the home run ball in 2023. Not so much this year, but that walk rate was way, way up. The Rangers think, hey, we can fix this guy. We know what's causing that walk rate to be astronomical. There's definitely a guy worth taking a swing on. And at 900K, I mean, relievers that have that track record of success, if you're going to buy low, I mean, I don't think it's that he's just too old now. He's just washed. Relievers are so freaking finicky that I feel like just the best shot at building a good bullpen, especially when you have so many spots to fill. I mean, you've got probably your 8th and 9th inning and a lefty in there as well. Maybe your 6th inning role guy as well. It depends on how healthy Josh Sborz is, but the rest of this pen, there are some internal options. Maybe Mark Church is ready to be a big time reliever next year. Maybe he's ready to slot into that role. There are some other guys down on the farm who might end up playing a role in this year's bullpen. Like maybe it's Emiliano Teodo. Maybe it's Skylar Hales. Maybe there are some other guys. I'll probably do an episode later on either this week or maybe next week talking about those internal options for the Rangers to fill some spots. But right now, I think buying low on 2 or 3, or heck, if the contracts are at these prices, maybe the Rangers could get 4 out of these 6 guys. I don't think that they will all end up being this low. But I think that's kind of going to be the best option for rebuilding a pen that was decent last year, but definitely had some holes. I mean, Leclerc as your 7th inning guy, he did not have a good season. You were hoping that Sborz was also going to play a bigger role than he did last year, and he just was not healthy. You're hoping that, with the doctor that he met with at the end of this year, try and figure out what the heck has been the deal with his shoulder. Can he get it healthy? Can he be a consistent contributor in 2025? I mean, heck, even in 2023, he had some spurts where he was really, really great, but the shoulder and other things were keeping him on the IL. Or when he was pitching and he was hurt, he was terrible. And then he would go on the IL, and then he would come back and be good for a spurt and then get hurt and pitch badly and then go on the IL. And then thankfully he had one of those really good spurts for a whole month in October to help the Rangers win that championship. How much can they rely on him in 2025? I'm hoping a lot. But again, relievers by their very nature are extremely fickle, extremely finicky. Heck, even the best ones, the ones with extremely great track records, the ones that are signing these 5-year, $95 million contracts, heck, even they can get beat. Heck, even they can look terrible for a month and a half, 2 months. That's what Josh Hader was in his first year or first couple of months in Houston. He was terrible. And then he got better and started performing like Josh Hader. But again, the Rangers, unfortunately, it seems like they're not going to be, unlimited checkbook this offseason. They're not going to be signing $500 million deals with a middle infield or an outfield or heck with anybody this offseason. It seems like this is going to be the way to piecemeal things forward. And in terms of where the Rangers are, headed, where they have some holes in their staff, I mean, the bullpen is the biggest hole at this point. The Rangers need to sign several guys, and they need to hit on most of them. And credit to Chris Young for what he's done, what he did last offseason. Wasn't given very much to work with. He said, "All right, you got to fix this whole bullpen. Hope that the guys that you have here are going to be decent, and the guys that you do sign all work out." And for the most part, they did. I mean, Jose Urena in a long relief role very much worked out. Kirby Yates, like I said, absolutely incredible. David Robertson, who the Rangers spent quite a bit on. I mean, he's averaging like, I think, a $10 million cap hit or so. A lot of that money was deferred, which the Rangers haven't really done that much over the course of the last, few seasons, or at least in the Ray Davis era. It's pretty much just been straight up paying players as they are here, and none of that Shohei Ohtani money deferral nonsense. But still, the Rangers have remaking this pen is going to be the hardest thing they do this offseason. I think these are probably my top 6 guys in terms of if the Rangers sign anybody on this relief market. I'm always scared to give big money to closers, especially for more than 2-3 seasons, because you never really know what they're going to be year to year, and not only just staying healthy, but just being effective. There's so few guys you can trust year over year over year to come out there and to perform and to be in that high leverage role. And because the Rangers have they're probably losing Kirby Yates and David Robertson and Jose Leclerc, they're at least going to be free agents and test the market. You got a lot of roles to fill, and you've got to hit on most of these signings, if not all of them. I'm hoping that these are guys that the Rangers are targeting. If they do, they could sign them, and all of those things work out, because no matter what's happening next year, they have a lot of work to do in their bullpen. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.